Hi guys, let's discuss writing equations of polynomials given zeros. So what we're going to do is we're going to write an equation of a polynomial given the following zeros. What the directions don't add on here is we are going to write these in standard form. Okay, so right now I have a 0 at 5 and I have a 0 at negative square root of 7. Now, if you recall, every time we do a square root of a number, we get plus or minus whatever the answer may be, right? So like the square root of 64 is plus or minus 8. So when we see a negative square root of 7, we're actually missing its counterpart, which is positive square root of 7. Notice the numbers or the coefficients out front of these square roots, one's negative and one's positive. You need that anytime you do a square root. So if only the positive version is there, you need the negative version. If the negative version is there, you need the positive. So we have our three zeros. We want to get to an equation in standard form which has x's involved. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go from my zeros back to factors, because factors involve x. So when you have 5 as a 0, the factor associated with that is x minus 5. Now the reason that works is if you take x minus 5, set it equal to 0, and solve, you're going to get positive 5. So it almost looks like they're opposites here. So there's 5, x minus 5 would be the factor. So when I have a negative square root of 7, we're going to have a factor of x plus the square root of 7, because if you set this equal to 0 and solve, you're going to get negative square root of 7 as an answer. And then on my third 0, we're going to get x minus the square root of 7 as a factor. Now, believe it or not, right there, that is a polynomial, but it is in factored form. What I want to do is I'm going to get things in standard form. So I'm going to have all of this multiplied all out. So I have 3 parentheses here. I'm going to multiply 2 of the parentheses together and then multiply by the third parentheses. So I could do these 2 multiply together first, these 2 multiply together first, these 2 multiply together first, and then multiply whatever parentheses I haven't touched yet. Now, I don't necessarily want to do that. I'll be careful about which one I choose. If you look at these back two, x plus the square root of 7 and x minus square root of 7, that's what I'm going to start with, because these are a little bit nasty. I have a square root of 7 and a negative square root of 7. What's going to happen is when I multiply these out, it's going to clean itself up really nice. So I'm going to multiply these 2 together, and then we'll worry about this x minus 5 later. So just multiplying these 2 parentheses, ignore this one. So we start by doing an x times an x, which is x squared. X times a negative square root of 7, so a positive times a negative is a negative, and x times the square root of 7 is just x square root of 7. Then I'm going to take that positive square root of 7 times x, positive and a positive is positive, x square root of 7. What I'm doing here is I'm lining up like terms. Then I have a positive square root of 7 times a negative square root of 7. So a positive times a negative is a negative. Since these are both square roots, I can multiply the insides here, 7 times 7 being 49, so square root of 49. Now let's clean this up here. X squared combines with nothing, so it just comes on down. When you have a negative x squared root of 7 and a positive x squared root of 7, negative positive same version there, that's going to eliminate, or as some say, cancel out. Finally, I have a negative square root of 49, so I have that negative and the square root of 49 being 7. So negative square root of 49, the negative comes down, square root of 49 gets you 7. So we have x squared minus 7 after we multiply these 2 parentheses out. So we're getting there. The only thing left to do is that x minus 5, I haven't touched that yet. I still need to bring that down and now multiply these 2 parentheses together. Now I'm going to give myself a little bit more room, so I'm going to slide over here. So we have x minus 5 times an x squared minus 7. So I'm just going to take this up over here so I have a little bit more room to work with. Same deal. Distribute, combine like terms. X times x is x to the third. I think I said x times x squared. X times negative 7 is a negative 7x. I'm going to put things in order here, so it's very easy to put in standard form. So I put my x to the thirds, x squareds, x's, and then constants. Negative 5 times x squared is negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times negative 7 is a positive 35. So combining like terms, the x to the third combines with nothing. A negative 5x squared combines with nothing, so negative 5x squared. A negative 7x comes down, and a plus 35 comes down. This is now a polynomial that is in standard form. So this polynomial will produce the zeros of 5 minus the square root of 7, and then positive square root of 7. That is my polynomial. So let's do this one more time, but this time I'm going to deal with imaginaries instead of square roots. So I have a 3, I have a 2i, and remember, i's come from, doing the square root of, say, negative numbers, like the square root of negative 16 is plus or minus 4i. So again, i's come from square roots are going to produce a plus and minus. So I have a positive 2i, I need to have a negative 2i as well. Same deal as before. Go from zeros to my factors. So if I have a 0 of 3, I'm going to have a factor of x minus 3. If I have a 0 of 2i, I'm going to have a factor of x minus 2i. And then a negative 2i, I'm going to have a factor of x plus 2i. This is currently a polynomial, but it's in factor form. I'm going to go ahead and try and work with it to get it in standard form, which means I need to distribute. I'm going to choose these back two parentheses. They're very, very similar. X minus 2i and x plus 2i should have some pretty interesting canceling here. So x times x being x squared. X times 2i is positive 2xi. Negative 2i times x is negative 2xi. And then negative 2i times a positive 2i, negative 2 and positive 2 being negative 4, I and I being I squared. Same deal, combine like terms. X squared comes down. 2xi and negative 2xi eliminate. Now this one's a little bit tricky, negative 4i squared. Remember, when you have an I squared, that's the same thing as negative 1. So instead of having negative 4 times I squared, you really have negative 4 times negative 1, which is positive 4. So negative 4i squared becomes positive 4. So that's my result of multiplying these back two parentheses together. Still need to multiply by that x minus 3. So I do have a little bit of room here. I'll work with that. Take the x times the x squared is x to the third. X times a positive 4 is positive 4x. Negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x squared. Negative 3 times a positive 4 is negative 12. Combine like terms, x to the third minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 12. That is a polynomial in standard form. So the key here is make sure you have all of your zeros there, positive and negative versions of I, positive and negative versions of square roots. Flip them all to factors, and then just multiply your factors out. Multiply two sets of parentheses together, get a result, multiply by the next parentheses, and so on and so forth. So I started by multiplying these two, got a result, multiply by the final parentheses. If I would have had another parentheses, I'd multiply these two and then multiply the next one, so on and so forth. That was writing equations of polynomials given zeros.